Hello, everyone. We are excited to be back in the new year. And I think today we want to talk about something that has come up in the office quite a bit. Kind of started at the end of the year, but it's a really heavy January topic. And it is really all about why January can feel so hard. I think a lot of us take time over the last 2 weeks of the year with the holidays where we get some time off. We have time to actually decompress, reflect on the year, reflect on our goals. And a lot of us come in hot and heavy into January with all of these things that we want to accomplish. Some people call them New Year's resolutions, some people call them goals, some people call them lifestyle changes that they want to make. But regardless, they're all just ready to dive in. And yet, even with the greatest motivation, sometimes January, just getting through the day, can feel really heavy. And so we wanted to kind of talk about why that occurs and some tips to make this month feel a little bit easier.
Yeah, and a lot of times I feel those comments get made by individuals who have a very high bar set for themselves, which isn't a bad thing by any means, but a lot of times it just takes the awareness, for lack of a better way to put it, of what's occurring, what you're asking your body to do, and just kind of coming to the understanding what not your limitations are, but just listening to your body and understanding you're not going to achieve whatever some of those high lofty goals are overnight. I feel like I say it a lot of times and it comes up in different instances and scenarios and conversations, but it's just like everybody's favorite P word of patience and just kind of taking the time to understand how to get where you want to go. And you'll get there, but you want to make sure that you don't burn the candle at both ends and kind of nosedive right out of the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think beyond just patience, some of the reason that the December into January transition can be so sticky and difficult is just January 1st comes and it's like, okay, great. It is now a new year, but our body is still physiologically functioning the same. It does not change. It's not like a whole new year happens and something magical happens internally in our body. It is all the same. And so some people really do actually kind of reset their nervous system. They have the capacity to take on more because they did rest over holiday break. But for a lot of people, even though you're not working, there's still quite a bit of low level stressors happening in the background that you're not actually coming into January feeling reset. And so you're asking your body to take on all these different things and you have all these goals because like Jay said, you're I don't want to use the word high functioning, but you're somebody who's already doing a lot. You're eating clean, you're going to the gym, you're taking your supplements, and you're like, why am I not hitting this one thing that I'm after? And often it's because our body is functioning at this threshold that we're not allowing it to come down from. And then we're just trying to pile more onto that plate. And your nervous system and your body just kind of physiologically are like, okay, I don't know, something's got to give.
When you mentioned like the stressors of the holidays and things like that, this is nothing against the families. Like when we get together with the family, love y'all and everything like that. So we're not just knocking that aspect of things, but it's also the aspect too. When I think about this, I think about it also from kind of like the performance lens, where if we take the time to unplug and unwind during the holidays, that's great. The body needs that time to be able to relax, refresh, reset itself a little bit. But then when we get back, a lot of times, again, because we have those high expectations and lofty goals that we set for ourselves, we want to hit the ground running immediately. And regardless of who you are, whatever level you're at, like even if it's pro athletes that I'm working with, if you take a little bit of a break, you're not going to hit the ground trying to set a PR, like a personal record in anything. Your body needs to reacclimate to be able to get back up to performing of whatever that is. So it's again walking before we can run with some of those things. And it's again, it keeps coming up, but just like the patience aspect of it and the awareness of it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times something I see in the office is people equate the amount of effort they're putting in with results. Like they will think kind of like what you were just saying with this whole PR thing, like if they show up and they do their workouts every day and they meal prep and they take their vitamins and they check every box under the sun, like they're putting in that much effort that they should be able to get these results. But the reality is they haven't done the walking before you can run aspect of it. And just even from the stressor standpoint, not following your usual sleep routine. You're up later, you're sleeping in later, you're up earlier because your kids aren't sleeping when they're supposed to be, eating different foods than you normally do. Yes, this can mean sugar. Like a lot of people this time of year will point their fingers at sugar, but you're just eating differently. You don't eat this kind of food all of the time. which makes it harder for your body to digest this sort of food. Being less active or being active in different ways. Like personally, Jay and I, we went to Hilton Head. And so I would say we were actually fairly active for a trip. We both stretched or did yoga every day. We walked on the beach several, but also we took like 2 hour walks every day. I cannot say at home I'm walking 2 hours at a time ever unless I go to the zoo. And so we're doesn't mean you're necessarily like couch potato, but again, for these like high achieving people who are like, I'm still doing this stuff, why is this so hard? It's because you're asking your body to take on more and you're not giving it the opportunity to ease back in.
And with that, it comes to the big understanding that I will always try to emphasize the amount of effort that you put into whether it be exercise, whether it be to the meal plan or what have you, the amount of effort that you put in to achieve something, accomplish something, push towards something is the same amount of effort that you need to put in the recovery piece. So using that physical component of it, if it is like a fitness goal that we're trying to achieve, when you are in the act of exercising, working out, performing, you are breaking your body down. It does not produce those benefits. Those gains in that strength and the muscle changes and everything occurs when we rest. And if we are constantly going 100 miles an hour and not allowing the body the adequate time to be able to rest, we're not getting those adaptations. And that's where some of that frustration can really start to arise as well, because you are putting in the effort. You're going 100 miles per hour the entire stinking time, but you're not seeing those results. And if anything, you're starting to lose results because now you're feeling more tired. You're getting less output at each of those sessions. And it's because you're not allowing your body time to reap the benefits of what you've already done. And so that can be the toughest thing just mentally to be able to wrap our heads around of just because you're not putting forth necessarily the physical exertion does not mean you're not putting forth effort to not go to the gym and push as hard, to swap that super heavy lift for a yoga session, for a stretching session, to allow your body the time to acclimate, to adapt, to claim those benefits of what you just did, to then be able to go harder the very next time. But again, it comes back to the concept of go big or go home and just feeling as though we have to go 100% every single time.
Yeah. And I think that really feeds into the idea of like, we've talked about this a lot with other goal setting calls that we've done is just like you cannot rely on motivation to get you through. You need to have your deeper why and you have to go through this whole process. But in this particular instance, the amount of stress that you have in your body, whether that is just pushing yourself too hard or kind of like what Jay was saying, like not working through that mindset of still viewing it as effort to just take a recovery day or to get a little bit of extra sleep, that stress that is kind of underlying in your body is always going to trump that deep motivation that you have. And so at some point, this is where I see New Year's resolutions fail all the time the second, third week of January because you have so much motivation. You just came off 2 weeks off of work. You're like, all right, I've got this, but that low burning stress is still there and you never really did anything about acknowledging it and it's catching up to you and now you're back into your routines. You're going to the gym classes that you signed yourself up for and you have to make dinner and you have to do all of these different things that you put on your checklist to do, but that stress becomes so high that it doesn't really matter how much motivation you have, you're just not going to be able to keep up. And so that's where we see this mismatch of how much effort you're putting in and the results that you're actually getting on the other side.
Yeah, and this is the time period where that it can really show itself a little bit more and can also show the frustration a little bit more because we did have that time off because our sleep schedule is different, because our eating schedule is different, because our workout schedule is different. When we come back into our regular routine, the body has to readjust to get back into that. The circadian rhythm in particular, odds are very high that we were going to bed at a different time, waking up at a different time. And now when we try to get the body back on what our old time was, it's not ready for that. So we're not falling asleep necessarily as quickly as we had. We're not getting as deep a sleep as we necessarily did. And when we wake up, we're feeling like we got hit by a truck because the body internally is still expecting us to be asleep. So we're waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle, and then it's just a grind to even get out of bed. And right off the bat, we're already feeling as though we're fighting an uphill battle. And so it's just taking that time to reacclimate everything. It's not the 100% effort that we're putting into the gym. The effort can be manifesting and showing itself in those other areas of going to bed a little bit earlier, of fighting that mental challenge of acceptance of doing that walk. Again, just to use that as an example, but it's just kind of meeting the body where it's at and giving the body what it needs to set yourself up for those long-term progressions.
Yeah, and I think something, a way that I kind of like visually explain this to patients, I talk about how we all have like a stress bucket internally. And so everything that we experience in our life that is stressful kind of piles up on top of one another. Getting like your circadian rhythm being out of whack, eating different foods, the getting back into a routine, the physical demands of how your body has to recover after exercising, all of these things are all considered stressors on our body. And they all kind of just like pile up and piling up. And your body does a pretty good job of managing them to a point. At some point, they kind of start to overflow, the bucket starts to overfill, and that's when we start to get those physical or mental, emotional symptoms of stress occurring in our body. And so, doing the things like Jay talked about in terms of recovery, like taking the day off of lifting to stretch, going to bed earlier, there's some supplements or things that you can do to help your body recover from stress, or just make sure you're eating vegetables at every meal, hydrating, getting adjusted. These are all methods where you can either help to drain that stress bucket or increase the capacity of that stress bucket so you can take more on without it actually affecting you. And that's the piece that I think people need to really be focusing on, is to ease back into these routines rather than setting these giant lofty New Year's resolution kind of goals.
Because stress is always going to come in. You're never going to completely eliminate stress, but what you need to do is set your body up to be able to manage and cope with it. And it's not to say to completely disregard the stress that's popping up, but it's going to occur, whether it be from work, whether it be physical stress of an exercise with screaming kids at 7:55 when you need to be out the door at 8 o'clock type of thing. Whatever these stressors are, it's going to arise. And if you're setting your body up to be able to manage that, you're going to be able to get through it a little bit better, because as that continues to build and when that starts to spill over, using the bucket analogy, that's when all of a sudden our fuse gets a little bit shorter and seemingly small things just irk us to no end and we explode type of a thing. Like all of a sudden our temper is super short and the seemingly small spilt milk that's now on the floor, we just absolutely lose it type of thing. And it's not the spilt milk that does it as much as it is the 30 different things that we were completely trying to ignore and just push and bury deep down that now has come to the surface and just needs to get out. So we need to make sure that we provide that support to the body to then be able to focus and continue to push ourselves in those other areas.
And I would say, like, if you're somebody who feels like you're trying to identify, like, is this you? Like, are we talking to you? Like, if you feel like you have like that short fuse, or you just lose your patience really quickly, or you're just not feeling rested, you're feeling run down, like, we're talking to you. It's not some crazy amount of like, well, you have to be a professional athlete. Like, yes, professional athletes experience this, but also everyday people, moms, people who just work a 9 to 5 job. We all get into this like trap of feeling like we have to accomplish it all now and it all has to happen in January because that is what the media is telling us. But at the end of the day, in January, like, the days are shorter. We are supposed to be in a time of rest physiologically. And so the media is out here shouting at us like, do all these things, start your diet, start your New Year's resolutions, go to the gym. Here's your coupon. You can come to the gym for free for 30 days if you sign up for a year. All of these things, this propaganda is coming at us at one end. But the other side of the coin is that this is a season where we're supposed to slow down and rest. We're supposed to ground. We're supposed to be, not hibernating per se, but we're supposed to allow our body to actually like reset to be able to take on these new things that you want to do. And many of us don't, because the whole world social media propaganda is pulling us this other direction. You feel like you're doing something wrong because you are a high achiever. You have a lot of goals that you want to accomplish. And so you think, well, if everybody else is doing it, I ought to be doing it too. I would just challenge you to kind of have the mindset switch in your head of, what if I slow down? What if I actually prioritize my recovery? How will that change the output or the goals or the results that I get if I just took a minute to work on my recovery instead?
This is where it comes to the individualized aspect of things, because to kind of flip that a little bit, you need to know yourself better than anyone else. And odds are you do. And so, with that, if you truly did take the holidays to be able to unwind, relax, refresh, and you were coming back feeling 100%, if you allowed your body to rest, to recover, and you are feeling fresh and you are primed to start to go towards whatever those goals are, do it.
Yeah.
We're trying to just get you to do a self assessment, essentially, and to truly evaluate where you're at stress wise, physically, mentally, emotionally, and are you ready to continue to push? And if not, that is okay. We just need to make sure that we are now devoting the effort we were going to put over there to addressing how we're feeling right now, because we don't want you to put your effort towards something where you're then going to feel like you're spinning wheels, because the progress isn't going to be coming as quickly or at all as to what you would expect. So it's understanding where you yourself are at and what your body needs to be able to set yourself up to make those progressions.
And I,
We need to get you there.
yeah, and I think like even just a personal example, like I I had really been consistently weight training 3 days a week for probably the last 12 to 8 weeks, pretty consistently. Coming into January, I now would like to start adding in some cardio. And it really has nothing to do with the fact that it is January. It is just like I took 2 weeks, we went on vacation, I actually rested my body, and I'm in a place where I have capacity to put one more thing on my plate. It is not, I'm now going to double the length of my workout. It is not, I'm now going to do these other 87 different things. I'm adding one thing to my plate because I feel my body has the capacity to take that on. And when I can take that on consistently and do that for a few weeks at a time and show up for myself and allow that to feel good, then the question becomes, okay, great. Now what's the next thing that I would like to do? It is not let's throw the kitchen sink because it's January 1st at your body, because that's where we're going to see that overload. And I also think it's totally okay to say, I'm not primed and ready to take on something new right now, and allow yourself to resurface, rebound, get to the point where you're like, okay, I do feel grounded and stable enough to add something. And then we pick the one thing that's going to get you closer to your goal. And I think the other thing is with goal setting, just because everyone is going to the gym or they're trying a new diet, you need to ask yourself what your actual goal is and then pick one thing that's going to get you closer to that. It could be Pilates, it could be strength training, it could be going to bed earlier. So just because everybody else is doing it doesn't mean you need to be doing it. And I would challenge you really to reassess more often than once a year. Is doing that goal bringing you joy and getting you closer to your results? Because let's say you want to work on your flexibility this year and you add in Pilates and you hate it. Like it's the worst thing you've ever done. Well, there's a lot of ways to add flexibility. That does not have to be the one that you continue to do. And so I would just challenge you, once a month to check in and say, how is this actually feeling in my body? And do that self assessment, like Jay was talking about.
And I think you touched on the underlying message that's huge. Regardless of what it is that you're looking to implement and trying to do, you need to be very clear on why you're doing it and what are you trying to achieve. Just because everybody is doing the Pilates class, just because everybody is dieting, whatever that may mean for them, if you aren't trying to get more flexible, if that's not your real goal, why are you making that a priority? Make sure your priorities are in line with what you are actually wanting to accomplish. Sometimes it takes just taking that moment and self reflection to understand, what do you want? Like, what is that? The movie of The Notebook? I don't remember the
Yeah, it
movie,
is the
but I
notebook.
quote that more times than I probably should. It's just like, what do you want? Think through that, understand that. And once you become clear with what that is, then it's understanding what's going to support that and go from there.
And so I would say, like, really just thinking about before you're too hard on yourself of thinking, I'm not getting the results that I want. This month is really challenging for me. I would say, really just kind of recenter and do that self assessment of focusing on, like, what are my actual goals? Does my body need help or support to allow myself to take on new things? And do I need support in helping myself reach these goals? And those would be really great places to start before you start trying to take on 500 different things and making this month way more challenging than it really needs to be.
And today's word of the day is plugging for all of those who are paying attention.
Yeah. I love to make up words.
I'll give it to you.
Awesome. I hope this was helpful. And we talked a lot about how this applies in January, but I think this is a message that should be revisited often throughout the year. So come back to it, re listen to it. Anytime you're setting goals and you feel like you're having trouble getting the results you're looking for, this is a really good conversation to listen to. I hope it was helpful.
New Year,
Happy
everybody.
New Year.